Well, good day. Good morning and welcome to our meeting. It's a delayed start, as everybody is aware, and I would like to actually open today's meeting at 10:56 a.m. I acknowledge traditional owners and pay respect to elders past and present on the land in which today's meeting is being held. There are two apologies for today's meeting, and they are listed in the agenda. The panel for today's meeting, on my furthest left, is Councillor Penny O'Connor, Councillor Rick Powell, Member Peter Lee, Deputy Presiding Member Jean Poltas, and my name is Francesca Fanti, Presiding Member. There are no members on leave of absence, and the minutes for this meeting, as our other meetings, will be available on the website. We have one item for today's meeting, and that is in Part B, so the Subiaco. Members, can I have a show of hands if you do considerable matters before you on today's agenda? That is unanimous for me to take it. Members, are the disclosures of interest? Yes.
Yes, under 2.4.9 of DAP Code of Conduct, I declare an impartiality of interest on the Council of Subiaco, and this matter has been before Council, and I also took part on an official Council site visit. As a member in Code of Conduct, I will assess this application.
Thank you for that interest. Approval is granted for full participation in today's meeting, and that includes voting on the item. Yes.
Mine goes under 2.4.9 of the DAP Code of Conduct. I declare an impartiality interest. I am a councillor with the City of Subiaco, and this matter has been before Council. I also took part in an official council site visit as a panel member in accordance with 2.12 of the Code of Conduct. I will assess this panel application on this panel process.
Thank you. Approval is granted for the member for participation in the meeting, and that includes voting on the item. There are no other interests. We'll move to the agenda. We have one item that's been indicated. We have a number of presenters, including there'll be an opportunity for officers from the city. We will move immediately to those presentations. They are listed as Mr. Warren first, Rico Sofa, and Matthew Payne. As members are aware, there is a time limit on your presentations. We encourage you to stick with the time limit. For panel members, we will have questions at the conclusion of all of the presentations, and then we will go to the officers at the city. We're going to come back to panel members for further questions. I will hand over to yourself, Warren.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning. Today I'm here to talk about a building that we all own. As you may be aware, the Regal Theatre is owned by the residents of Western Australia. So I hope that doesn't cause you a conflict of interest, but I think given that it's all Western Australia, we should be okay. On their behalf, a board of trustees looks after the building and is entrusted with its conservation and restoration. And 3 years ago, I was elected as the chair of the board of the Regal Theatre Foundation, and that's the reason for my attendance today. When we discovered that the site adjoining the Regal Theatre was to go for sale, we contacted the agent and indicated that we'd be very interested in discussing with the new owner potentials for collaboration on looking at ways in which the Regal could enhance its facilities, while hopefully ending up with a win-win outcome for both the developer and the Regal Theatre. When Westbridge were announced as the new owners of the theatre, of 484 Hay Street, the property adjoining the theatre, we entered into discussions with them, and I'm delighted to state today that we have come to a wonderful outcome for future patrons of the theatre, in as much as that as part of this development, we're able to provide additional female toilets for the theatre, a universal access toilet, a lift between the floors, the connection of those new facilities through to the foyer of the Regal Theatre, and the redirection of a fire escape to ensure that all access from the upper levels are still maintained. We've also managed to include the construction of a storeroom to provide additional storage for the Regal Theatre and the provision of 3 car bays within the car parking area associated with the new development. As you may appreciate, a heritage-based building such as the Regal, there are certain constraints about how you go about including additional facilities, and we've been examining those for the past 3 years to try and look at ways in which we can facilitate this. All of them have compromises to the Regal, to the historical fabric of the building, so we're delighted this opportunity's been presented, which we regard as once in a lifetime opportunity to actually provide these facilities, and the intention is that they will be included in a separate strata title development, which will then be handed over at no cost to the Regal Theatre Foundation, allowing us to both preserve the historical fabric of the theatre in toto, but also provide these new facilities immediately adjoining that theatre. So I think my 3 minutes are up, but I just wanted to provide that background and happy to answer any questions later during the proceedings. Thank you very much for the opportunity to make that statement.
Thank you for your presentation. We will now move to Felipe Soto.
Just gonna have to Eric. Yeah. That's it.
Right, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity for presenting our proposal for H3 today. Our proposal for the site is the result of a positive engagement with the local design department. From the beginning, the design dialogue identified opportunities for this development to make a positive contribution to both the present and future of Subiaco's town center. The context couldn't be better. Subiaco's town center provides a perfect setting for infill housing with excellent connectivity to public transport, local outdoor amenity, and well-established entertainment hub that has been a destination for Perth's community for years. This proposal genuinely aims to make a positive contribution to the future of Subiaco's activity center by maximizing the potential of transit-oriented areas while also respecting the heritage qualities of one of Perth's most recognized cultural and entertainment hubs. Our proposal truly understands the context, the ongoing development of the area, and the success of recent projects within the town center provide an ideal setting for proposal that not only capitalizes on housing opportunities and the need for increased density, but also celebrate the unique heritage fabric of the immediate context. Few proposals have enabled like the one that we do here. The Regal Theatre is a primary source of inspiration for our vision for the site. As one of Perth's most important examples of Art Deco architecture, the Regal Theatre provides an ideal backdrop for a proposal that celebrates Subiaco's history while contributing to the future of the town center. Traditional shop fronts, richly textured ground floor tenancies, and the urban fabric from the theatre have shaped our vision for the site. Canopies, window detailing, and architectural forms inspire our design, which aims to harmonize the present and future of the built environment along H Street. In creating a strong connection between the ground floor and the podium with the theatre, the tower has been carefully crafted. We have implemented a significant setback of over 11 meters to ensure that the theatre remains a prominent singular element at the corner. Every decision was made thoughtfully, with various photomontages explored to ensure that the design has no detrimental impact on the urban context. As noted by the IR, The proposal demonstrates a deep understanding of the location's details and intricacies and provides a sophisticated, cohesive response to one of Perth's most notable Art Deco masterpieces. The view form was carefully considered, with massing and bulk reducing key sections of the site to ensure a smooth transition not only to the theatre but also to the adjacent properties to the north. As previously mentioned, several photo montages were created to assess the perception of bulk and scale from various locations within the town center. We wanted to ensure that while pursuing height, we were delivering a sympathetic urban response to the existing context. Careful consideration was given to the ground floor design. A highly activated ground floor featuring a vibrant mix of commercial tenancies aims to celebrate the commercial nature of A Street. Additionally, a pocket along the northern edge is dedicated to communal amenities, ensuring a lively and engaging presence along the byway. Regarding the connection to the theatre, a bar on the southeast corner Regarding the connection to the theatre, a bar on the southeast corner extends the lobby experience into our site. Wet areas and a lift are included to enhance the amenity of locals visiting the theatre, contributing meaningfully to the venue's functionality. A well-crafted connection will highlight the main architectural feature, serving as a testament to the integration of the past, present, and future of the theatre. In collaboration with Warren, who is here with us today, we're implementing a series of improvements to the design to make a positive contribution to the future of the theatre. Considering the strengths of the proposal and the full support from the local design review panel, we kindly request this panel to support the officer's recommendation and approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. We'll move to our final presentation for going to questions. Mr. Medley.
Thank you, presiding member. Good morning. Glad to see you avoided any significant delay. Matthew Kane from Planning Solutions, swept on behalf of the landowner opponent in Westbridge. You received my deputation summary. I acknowledge also the request and the comments back from Susie. I'll endeavour to keep these comments short. Firstly, I'm very pleased to receive the recommendation for conditional approval. We've been engaging when we look back on it, the city's offices since this time last year, several BRPs and meetings with the city. So I thank them for their approach and assessment. In June 2023, our client, Westbridge, engaged further with the Regional Theatre Foundation to discuss the potential opportunities for this site and the redevelopment that proposal for Hay Street. Through that engagement, it became apparent that the development projects presented exceptional opportunities for mutually beneficial outcomes and significant benefits for the Regional Theatre that come to them at no cost. The result of this engagement is the development application presented before you today. The redevelopment at 484 Hay Street has had to consider several key considerations, but obviously most important is the integration and the protection and management of the state heritage. The design outcome proposed by Space Collective is an example of well considered and high quality architectural design, and the city's DRP has agreed with this to fully support the proposal. From a planning perspective, whilst we do set some discretionary consideration for demolition and number of built form design elements, as set out within the city's RAR, these variations are acceptable consideration. And whilst we support the recommendation and conditional approval, we do see some modifications to conditions. The city's Red 13 response notes that it's supportive to modifications to conditions 15 and 22, and they have no objections to deletion of conditions 36 and 44. They do not support the requested changes of 18 and 32, so I'm going to address those. Condition 12, regarding this, we're accepting to leave the wording unchanged. Condition 18, we still maintain our request to leave. I understand the condition sort of stems from a suggestion by one of the city's officers during the site inspection, which the council president attended. It requires progression of design work and also works that simply aren't contemplated by development and habitat. nor has the recommendation come through the Heritage Council or a discussion with state heritage officers. I've spoken to the manager of the Historic Heritage at Deep Lake. She was aware of the conditional request. We say that the condition doesn't have an access to development and comprises what we're doing for legal, comprises minor demolitions, removes the toilets and create I'm proposing the alterations to the room. The significant work and benefits being provided to the legal are outlined in the RR and our solution are extensive already. The city indicated in their Reg 13 request that the Regal Theatre Board is supportive of this. However, in discussions with Mr. Perrin, the Regal Foundation hasn't formally supported this position. Whilst they may have discussed it informally at board level, it's not deemed a high priority, and Mr. Perrin advised there's about 80 other things that are on the list that sit higher, including works to repair roofs that leak and things like that. So the condition, whilst we appreciate that the intent is something the request to be deleted, to include it as a vice note, it's something we will consider. But it is the cost for it isn't considered any of our application or the letter agreement that exists. Regarding condition 32 and the other conditions that are proposed, the extent of buildings that are proposed to be surveyed under that condition are just it's entirely unreasonable, given the project proposes excavation construction of one level basement. From our understanding, if all the properties were surveyed, this would equate to potentially thousands of square metres of external space. And from my colleague behind me, Mr. Olgain, it potentially a significant cost. I've provided the submission from Mr. Gain on the application. He represents the structural engineer of the development questions on further reasoning as to why the condition as proposed is unreasonable for survey properties up to 100 metres away. Thank you. We request that the DAP consider the application supported subject to the modifications that have been put forward. If you do have any questions now, we're happy to bring the consultant team subject to discuss.
All those questions. I have a question to start. My question is specifically about plans, and I couldn't find a parent on.
Yeah, it is there because that's not what it might have been a historic reason. It's not the purpose of the room. It's currently being sort of in form of storage, but otherwise like an office. I think it says office store on the plans on the ground floor, which is next to the auditorium.
I just based on all the plans, all the heritage information, I could actually work out where it was. I could ask the officers as well. So where do you say it's on?
It's on the
not on the
ground
plans.
floor where the auditorium is. I think it's
If we go to my presentation, probably you can find the ground floor plan there.
As you come in, obviously through the main entrance, you go to the left where you've got the sort of toilets, etc. And there's a store and an office as you enter into the auditorium.
That's it. So it used to be in the early days, it was a live picture theatre.
Put it up on the screen.
It's not there presently, it's not used for that purpose.
Yes, you
In
can.
1938, one of the innovations. Oh, sorry.
I'm sure the others probably got a similar question to me, trying to work out exactly where it was. Or is. So it's not there, it's office at the moment. And the proposal not changing any of those elements, physical elements around that space, is that correct?
No, and in the auditorium was upgraded in 2015, and at that time, the only change the only change that was discussed with the Heritage Council and people like so like belt treatments on the old windows to maintain them, but shield them so that the office and space could be used. And the fire is some areas for any further discussion. plan, but the condition effectively requires the person or not. Trying to get us to do more and works with
Yes, third page of attachment 1 shows the as an office.
While we're bringing that up, providing with the background and history to it, when the Regal Theatre was opened in April 1938, it was written up in all the papers as a major architectural innovation, in as much as the theatre at that time was designed and created as a cinema. And on a Saturday afternoon, one of the major matinees would attract a range of young mothers, and they would have the facility to actually have their babies in prams, and they would leave them in the foyer against a tabulated list of numbers. And while the baby was sleeping, the mother could have a few moments off and go into the theatre. If the baby started crying, one of the front house staff would arrange for a number to come up on the screen, number 5, your baby is crying. They could come out, pick up the baby, and then go into what was known as a crying room, which was a separate room within the auditorium space, which we'll show you on the plan shortly. And that had a glass contained wall going straight into the auditorium. So if you look at the I think just
where that cursor is.
yeah, just there. That's an enclosed room, and the wall into the auditorium is composed of glass panels, so that a mother could sit in there with her crying child without disturbing the rest of the audience, but could still see the remainder of the film, and that was sort of the sound was conveyed through into the crying room, and that was seen as a major innovation in those days before all the Wi-Fi technologies that we have nowadays to have separate entities. And when it was turned into a performance space, the use of that, the number of young mothers attending many of the rock concerts during the 70s diminished, and that was then turned into an office accommodation, because again, the Regal is fairly short of storage space and administrative areas, etc. Has been used for that since that time. Offices are now being created upstairs, and that space is basically used for storage for front of house facilities. So during the inspection tour that was conducted to look at the theatre, there was a request, have you ever thought of using this for a parents' room? And something which the board has looked at and considered, and we said that we would take that on notice and discuss it with the board. We have advised the board of trustees of that development, but at that time we planned it to go into a forward set of works, but both the developer and ourselves were surprised when it was suggested as a condition of approval, because there had been no plans submitted for reuse of that, and it isn't part of the development that we had been discussing with Westwood. So the board of the foundation believes it's a useful idea. We have a number of priorities, such as funding the repairs to the roof, etc., to ensure the building is watertight, and a number of others, fire escapes and upgrades to air conditioning systems that we would put ahead of that. But we think that the idea of having a parent room is a worthwhile initiative, which we'd be very happy to look at in the coming years.
Yeah, so having been on site and been into the crying room, my understanding is that what we see on plan here is not actually what we see on the ground when we go in there. This shows going in.
So that's the current plan. I wrote that here. So this is the existing demo plan. You come in, there's the toilets, and then the office space off that. So all we're doing is move the toilets, extending that lounge, and then the bulk of the works, which we've been showing on this plan, you can say are then within the adjoining site.
Sure.
It's extending that.
But when you go into the crying room,
Yep.
don't you turn a corner?
Yes, you do, but in the original plan, you can see that there's a little alcove to go into the crying room. That the intention is to demolish that to create the connection through to 484 Hay Street. That's shown on this plan as a lounge, but it's basically extension
So
of a toilet.
where's the alcove?
You go back to that. You go back, that little alcove is just there's an airlock going into the toilets, which is on the right immediately adjacent to the Hay Street exit. And it has, so this is an airlock going into the women's toilets, and there's a little airlock here that goes into the crying room at the moment. So the intention is to demolish that section, and that's all been approved by the Heritage Council. And that would then, if we flip to the next slide, you'll see provides the connection then going through to 484. So that goes straight through and then connects into the new toilets here, the UAT there and the lift there. So it provides the connection through to the building. And the intention is that that would then be a separate strata unit, which would be vested in the Regal Theatre Foundation and provide those contiguous facilities.
So the plans propose no works to the crying room, which, although it's currently called an office, does still exist.
Correct. And the last time we submitted that to the Heritage Council was when we did a refurbishment of the entire auditorium. One of their conditions was that the glass window and everything should remain, so that our acoustic consultant for the auditorium considered that it would be beneficial to actually have felt on the outside as a sound absorbent, because for performances you have different acoustics than you do for a cinema. So it is the crying room and it's integral and it's all in there. We've just coated either side of it at the moment and basically kept that, and that's been signed off by the Heritage Council. So the intention is to continue that, but as I said, the suggestion we thought of a parent room made a lot of sense, and that's something we would certainly look to in our forward program of works, but we hadn't had any discussions with Westridge about that and hadn't asked them to fund that.
And the works that are proposed would not compromise the capacity for that room to be returned to a use that is compatible with its original historic use as a crying room.
Correct.
Yeah. The main issue is that the condition of the trigger, it's a prior issue of doing permit. The onus is on us to go and do something we have to close to go. So if there's every intent that they'll look at it, it's not something that our clients funded. It's not something that we currently funded to put a constraint on our approval that it's prior to issue doing permit. And we were quite upfront with the city after the meeting, so we were happy for the advice and happy to consider it, but it's not something that's
And what we're going to, how we're going to advice note in our decision making.
So if you listed in the advice note XIV on the documentation we've got, refers to that particular element. And advice note is just that there's no legal statutory status and it's not enforceable in the same manner as a conditions. It's just, as Anne's note, it's advice only.
Let's ask a question. So, council feeling condition that it's not that's what's happening.
where it's up to the Regal Theatre, it's not part of the scope of work. So
it's actually on our land and in the building for which I'm a trustee, and we think it's a worthwhile suggestion, but we were just a bit surprised.
That we were required to do if the Regal Theatre is changing there, and so it's not going to help you can't actually.
No, they don't have legal right to do that, and therefore we found it quite strange that Westridge had been asked to do something on our property for which we hadn't been. We had some formal discussions, thought it was a useful idea, and the board had sort of said, let's look at that, but we hadn't had any advice or discussions with Westridge about that as part of this development.
It was a condition that you contribute to funding, something like that. So
yeah.
can't do it.
suppose similarly, they could ask you to modify the auditorium, which is part of this application as well. I think the extent of the application has been set, and a number of the issues, a number of the features of theatre can't be.
Without upsetting our client, or our collaborator, we'd welcome you putting in a condition that the entire Regal Theatre be refurbished and repainted an exterior, but we're also realistic that perhaps the financial viability of the entire thing, we've costed out everything to do with a forward program of works for the Regal Theatre, and it comes to well over $5 million. So we're not asking Westbridge to have a program involved for the next decade in which we're looking at upgrading and enhancing the facilities for future patrons of the region.
Thank you.
In essence, what you're saying is that that condition would be unenforced.
It's unachievable, and it's out for
Thank you. I have a question. I'd like to further, Matthew. I'd like some further commentary from you in relation to Commission 22. You did summarise that. Thank you for doing that with the time provided. I have mapped out all the sites, so I'm clear on which sites we're talking about. Could you explain further? I know that the condition has 261 Rockaby Road in it. I'm not sure if that's just an oversight. It's meant to be another site, maybe offices complies. But could you go through a little bit more detail? And this is specifically in relation to obligations around the demolition permit and dilapidation report. Sorry, prior to the demolition permit, the dilapidation report.
So yeah, it's prior to the issue of a demo and or a building permit. I've got down here as well as structural stuff.
Great.
But it might be in a better position than me to explain the construction process once.
Perfect. Can we, before we get to that conversation, just to assist people, there is a map at the very end of it. I can't remember what attachment it was. It's right down the back of the agenda.
Could I potentially assist as well while we have the break? I actually managed to pick up a few copies of
Brilliant.
which might help you. It's got the plans on.
Yeah, there's a, while you're pulling it up, it's right down the back, probably at the very end of the agenda. And it's just got a map that shows the site. It's the same map to the graph.
Yeah, just
And over to yourselves to speak about it.
thank you.
Yeah, look, I'll just give you a bit of a brief overview on the construction methodology that will be used on this project. So obviously concerns been raised about the excavation in the basement. Now, it's a single-story basement. Excavation will be somewhere around 4 meters in overall depth. Now, the piling methodology that we'll use on this contract will be using the piling methodology of the CFA, which is continuous white ordering piles. It's a vibration, it's referred to in the industry as a vibration-less piling methodology. It works by an auger going in the ground, replacing the sand with concrete immediately. It's not a driven pile, it's not a sheet pile, it's not a methodology that causes vibration. So if you were walking down the footpath adjacent to the site and the piling rig was 2 or 3 meters away from you undertaking the works, you'd badly feel that it's doing anything. So vibrations is something which we're concerned about on this site. Now, the only thing that generally affects a radius of what's been enforced here at 100 meters would be if we were undertaking a significant amount of dewatering, because it affects foundations of main properties. You have to really check, you have to make sure that the water table is balanced across a larger area. There's no water here, so there's no dewatering in this excavation. It will simply be
solar piles installed, which will be a vibrationless methodology. It will be excavated and the building will go from there. So we're not taking any water out and we're not causing any vibration. Just on that note we've got there, the little pack, if you go to the last page, we were involved in the Victoria House project in Shenton Park, where this has got a single-story basement. This project, it's a two-story heritage. I'm sure everybody's aware of the Victoria House project. Now, these were piles that were installed 50 millimeters away from the heritage building, so almost adjacent, you know, and in fact, in some places, it's so close that they were actually the foundations of this building. Now, there was not a single piece of damage caused to this entire heritage structure during that construction. So, I think to survey buildings within 100 meters of this site is not a reasonable advice. I think that the Regal Theatre, because we're piling directly adjacent to it, and there is risk of movement. This should be included in the MIDAP, and all of the buildings.
Any further comments from my commissioner?
The only other thing I just mentioned on that item, in the conditions, because I said, just in terms of the management, other management requirements, there's a requirement for a population action plan, and so that itself is also going to make sure there's no other impacts in the surrounding area. So for that process, checked. But otherwise, the significant radius and, as I said, the amount of area that is covered. Some buildings say development stable rather 20, 30, 40, 50 meters away is unreasonable.
Any follow-up questions on this? Yes.
So, well, I understand the technique of the replacement. I wouldn't visit this building, so DPO and so on have timber piles for the tower piles. So that would have been most of the expressions about water. So the water table is water.
Well, the building adjacent to 500 Hay Street, that's got a 2.5 story basement. I was involved in that project. It's a top-down construction. There's no dewatering, so this project is much higher that way.
For that 500, you were saying 500.
Yeah. So where so the number one there, that's got a 2.5 story basement, and there's no dewatering involved in that project. So we're quite significantly higher. So we're very, very deep in Subiaco. It's extremely deep there. Yeah. There's no rock, it's sand. So.
You know what the foundations of the region?
No.
I have, when we did the auditorium, we went under the floor and found that there were a row of bricks and then they started going up. So we've been having a lot of detailed discussions to ensure that the foundations are substantially reinforced. And we've had some discussions with potential builders about almost putting expanding concrete under them to ensure that the entire foundation structure is supported.
Yeah.
So that's a design.
Yeah,
issue.
that's all.
Yeah. That's why we asked, but we're still happy to do it. 474 Hay Street, 61 Rocky Road, but the others
Any further questions to the applicant?
Yes, I've got one. Excuse me, sorry. Why has this come so late? The request of change in the conditions. I mean, you've been aware of this, you know, sort of when it went to the city for the RAR. Why are we now giving after that approval? You know, that we want to change the conditions for the.
Thank you, Council. So the consideration by Council was to provide a recommendation to RAR to that consideration. So it's the decision making meeting, which is the appropriate time to raise these matters not just yourselves as the councillors, but the full panel.
Right, so that my question is, now this information is coming, the request is coming fairly late and without really sufficient time now to, to judge the engineering plans that you're making.
So I think just to comment that the city's report, I appreciate the planners here, that the city's report doesn't talk to MIDAP, they don't have a policy or information to guide it, so they've taken an assumption based off their building surveyor's knowledge and just said 100 metre radius is sufficient, without giving information to say that our structural engineer that deals with this day in, day out, looked at the site and it's unreasonable to wide extent. That's why we're talking to now.
Okay. You mentioned Shenton Park and heritage building there. I'm also recalling that in Shenton Park, the same methodology was put forward for, I think, 97 Evans Street. And it was there were heritage buildings opposite, and it was not, this methodology was not accepted. You would say that.
You just referring to other approvals that have previously had.
And where
I know
the
the
comes.
yeah, and the city's report notes one Subiaco, the previous applicant was chosen not to address a condition at the time. That's something out of our control. We're here before you providing the expertise saying that the condition as proposed would be onerous and is unreasonable. I can't comment on other applications, other developments, the reason behind it. Ontario 4:1, I'm not sure of the specifics of any deal requirements conditions, but that's also proven stand there is not something controlled by other local government assurance. So this is the prime opportunity to supply the request these modifications, provide the information to the application summary, and then separately have to consult here that explains the methodology of excavation requirement won't have any impact on the extent of properties that are being asked for survey. As I said, there's 500 acres, a 7-storey commercial building. The Vibe Hotel is a 10-storey, I think 170 room hotel, but it's a significant amount of floor space, internal and external, that the city's asked to be surveyed without any justification or reason coming in the report to substantiate the request.
Seems responsible.
So a question, so every building identified will have to have every room inspected.
The condition says specific status of all buildings, both internal and external.
So that would be a logistical nightmare. It's probably 300 or 400 departments.
And whilst I appreciate maybe the comment that came from the city of that, not necessarily all properties reported, landowners might not consent, you have to assume that everyone's going to say yes to a survey of the property, and you have to look at the worst case scenario, which I think we discussed it, possibly $300,000 or it would be well in $700,000. I mean, this sort of condition jeopardizes the entire project.
The questions. Yes.
Yes, just wanted to clarify. So your request pulls back the number of properties being surveyed, and in particular it excludes the Subiaco Hotel and the heritage protected shops on Bromley Road.
The other side,
The south side of Bromley Road, that's 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So more than comfortable and happy, certainly, given there's the building right next door to where we're going to work, which is avoid the regal. And then that catches also the lane ways to the rear and then footpaths, which is listed separately under together with surrounding paved areas rights of way. But then the distance of those other buildings, so listed out here, it's just not reasonable.
There, I take the point that you've made about the more modern buildings, but these ones are older buildings with unknown foundations. Would it not be, and they're smaller, with smaller numbers of rooms, would it not be prudent to consider a dilapidation report for those heritage properties?
So
The costs involved, you know, we're not talking Vibe Hotel costs, we're talking City Hotel and a modest commercial building.
I'll ask that if you don't mind. I think it's really just the sort of the what are we doing here kind of scenario. If you're walking along the street a few meters from the pile and you can't feel it, a foundation of the building's 20 meters away it's not something we really should be talking about. If we were using a driven pile technique where they bash a hammer on top of the pile, it's a displacement method, it makes the ground actually physically move, we'd probably be looking at a radius of concern around 10 to 15 meters for that piling methodology. Even if we were doing that, we'd probably suggest that you wouldn't look at these properties. So given that we are doing a methodology which doesn't displace material, it doesn't cause vibration, we're not taking water out, it's just going to be situation normal all day, every day for these properties. Unless there's just no way on earth that we can affect these foundations, they're just far too far away. We couldn't possibly do anything in that site with the foundation. It's impossible.
Yes, you have a question?
No, I understand the construction but is the construction method for the basement part of our building? You do value engineering, you get someone else doing it.
It's the only way a contractor would do that here. No, they don't have the capability to do anything else. It's the only natural way for this type of construction. So you can't make this wall in any way. And we can actually specify on our drawings that we want the CFA piles.
So that
You could more than happy for a condition to be that.
but just what you're telling me is this construction method make sure that there's no damage.
Yeah.
Well, if you were to review less buildings, because there's less damage, not make sure there's less damage.
Any further questions at this juncture? Members, you can come back. We're going to go to the offices in a moment. You can always come back if you wish to clarify further through the applicant's name. So
I just wanted to select the condition in regard to storage.
yes,
So, can you amplify on that?
In relation to condition 12,
Yeah.
as I said at the onset when I was talking about this, so in the past it's not uncommon to remove references to documents from legislation because things change over time. So when it's through, you generally wouldn't necessarily reference policies or documents that may be amended or revoked, and there might not be a change for in the future, but if we get 3 years in, there's a change, the standards change, and it leads back to that. So it's not uncommon to remove those references for the advice note, as the design statutory line document that looks in relation to the condition. But as I said, I'm happy to leave the work unchanged.
thank you. We will now move to city officers. If you'd like to provide some comments, including anything that was heard in today's meeting or responsible.
Condition 18. been to.
Yes. Over to yourselves.
Thank you, and for you, presiding member. I'm Anthony Denham, Manager of Planning Services in Subiaco. I'm joined by Isha Moon, the city's senior structural planner. So yeah, when this application was presented to the August ordinary council meeting, council resolved unanimously to endorse the officer recommendation for approval. Just a bit of background on the Regal Theatre and the importance of Subiaco. So the Regal Theatre is an iconic component of the Subiaco town centre, an integral part of the overall Subiaco community and its built form heritage. This is reflected by it being on the State Heritage Register Heritage Places, which is the highest heritage listing in Western Australia. With this heritage listing comes certain limitations on what can be done to the building itself. These limitations are compounded by the layout and design of the building relative to its lot boundaries, which is that it is built to boundary, making it difficult to readily modify the building externally and internally in its current form. So before this application was lodged, officers met with developers to discuss the potential proposal at 484 Hay Street. During these discussions, city officers encouraged the developers to engage with the neighbouring Regal Theatre, noting the limitations as I've outlined above that are presented to them, and with it the opportunity that this could present to both the Regal Theatre, the developer, and by extension the broader community. Officers identified several areas that the Regal Theatre had expressed as pinch points for them, which they've raised over previous years, considering their constraints in this open discussion between the two parties. I'll just briefly touch on the community benefits and improvements to the Regal. As outlined in the city's RAR, the development includes several benefits free of cost to support the ongoing use and function of the Regal Theatre operations. These are addressed in more detail in Table 6 of the RAR, but generally include providing additional toilets, which is a net increase of 4 female toilets, and it's noting that we've been advised by the Regal that approximately 70% of the patrons are female. The inclusion of a universally accessible toilet, also noting that currently the patrons have to go across to the Subiaco Hotel if they require a UAT facility. The city did provide the Regal with, I think it was a loan a number of years ago, which wasn't taken up for the inclusion of a UAT at the premises. But it was actually very difficult to actually include noting the restrictions that I've flagged already. More generally, these benefits will greatly enhance the functionality of the Regal Theatre and improve patron experience. Also improving the broader accessibility by the introduction of a lift within the building, which will improve experience and allows more comprehensive upgrades to be done in the future if that was to be taken up. This proposal offers a unique opportunity to make meaningful improvements and upgrades to a heritage protected place, and could prove to be a model for similar approaches in the future in Western Australia. The proposal was referred to the Heritage Council of Western Australia, who noted, and I quote, "The works will not affect the cultural heritage of the Regal Theatre, and overall, the proposal will have major positive outcomes for the theatre and its ongoing use." So the city's DRP determined the design to be exemplar and appropriate within its setting, and additional dwellings and increased population of the town centre is consistent with the city's strategic and statutory planning frameworks. The city obviously assessed the proposal and against the planning framework and notes some key things of interest. Strong community support, 43 of the 56 submissions were in support of the proposal. More broadly, the consistency with the planning framework, despite some discretion, namely relating to height, side and rear setbacks, dwelling mix, and tree canopy and deck soil, all of which are being supported as outlined in the RAR. The panel is also encouraged to consider the images contained within attachment 24 of the RAR, which shows 3D images of the proposal as generated within the city's 3D model. It shows the suitability of the form of the building within its context. So just in summary, city officers consider that this to represent a once in a lifetime opportunity to improve the Regal Theatre's functionality, facilities, accessibility, and overall amenity. This could be achieved, or is highly unlikely to be ever achieved or realised given the site and heritage constraints within its own site. From this base, the proposed improvements are elevated in their potential to future-proof the operation of the Regal Theatre for another 100 years and beyond, and should be considered as such in the panel's deliberations today. This approach and outcome could become the benchmark model in Western Australia for buildings in similar situations. The proposal is being supported by the Heritage Council, the city's heritage consultants, city's DRP, the community, city officers, and also council. And obviously, yeah, the city notes that the regulation 13 request has been submitted and provide a response to that as well. So we'll take any questions.
Thank you. Panel members, are there questions to COs?
Just in regard to the hiring that's proposed, we could stipulate that in the planning commission because it's crossing through the building license, which is different legislation. Is that correct?
Yeah, so under the building legislations, obviously they've got more of an onus to make sure there's no damage occurring to buildings. So I think it's been at least the last 5 or 6 years, the city has been imposing this requirement on dilapidation report, particularly when major excavation works are being proposed. So a similar condition was imposed for one Subiaco. I think they had 2 or 3 village basements. There's another one on Hayes Street. We've actually refined. So previously for those ones we had a 100-metre radius, basically. But the advice from our building surveyor was that this would be more localised. So the condition as presented is not a 100-metre radius. It does extend up to 100 metres, but that's to the Subiaco hotel car park. But I think it's definitely not 100 metres. It's basically adjoining buildings, adjacent buildings. I understand what the applicant is saying about, some buildings being, taller and more modern and maybe not requiring it. But we're looking at purely for the fact that it's adjoining and excavation works are typically the extent of works that have the most impact on adjoining properties.
And I presume you're familiar with the requirement to get access to some of these buildings, because I know the condition says you take reasonable steps, but my experience is that a lot of the owners will say yes, come in and do it, and that's a huge cost. Involved one leaderboard, and just for one building to get access to all of the apartments and offices, something like several weeks just in one building because people are there, they're not available, etc. Months to survey. So, given that that's likely to be the case, that we will hold up.
Potentially, I'm not sure of the exact timing related to the proposal for the construction side of things, but like I said, it has been imposed on several applications in the last 5 or so years, and it's been done. So the condition is worded in a way that if owners don't request or don't agree to a dilapidation done, knowing that a dilapidation report is literally just a photographic survey, just saying this is the correct out. It's not that onerous. But yeah, that is open to form.
Any further questions from panel members at this juncture?
Condition 18. The previous trial room.
Yep.
What's your position on that? You heard the discussion that it doesn't form part of this application. Normally, when elements of an application plan doesn't form part of the application, it's unreasonable those conditions.
Yeah, no, we understand. I guess that potential argument. I guess what the city is saying is that this application is not just a 484 Hayes Street. It's a combination of 3 properties, really. It's the Regal and 484. So it is an integral part of the overall application. So we understand that the Regal is interested in exploring that room as being converted back to a cryo room or a modern interpretation of that. That would be a positive heritage impact. Our heritage coordinator has advised of that. So that's kind of our position. It's a relatively small room. I think it's about 12 square meters. It's not a super large room. So yeah, we consider a modern interpretation consistent with the variable benefits and improvement of amenities to the Regal this application. But equally understand if the Regal and the developer weren't keen to pursue it at this point in time. Probably it's up to them, but we consider it a positive character.
What about other elements of these legal theatre? Was that any of those considered as a condition to their plans? Or
Which elements?
what any other elements in your? I mean, why was this room singled out? Not other rooms on the plan?
Yeah, I think it was just because it would. I think it goes back to the patronage, and so about 70% of the patrons that use the Regal are female. A lot of the events that are held there, I understand, include younger children. So having a cry room, because I understand crying children are quite instructive to the nature of that particular operation. So including a modern interpretation of that in this facility, so you thought it would be
Room full of an auditorium full of kids screaming and yelling and crying and hanging out too much to that. Might be all right in an evening setting and parents are there. The fact that it's not being used as such these days demonstrates that it's not very well required. So it's interesting why that particular room is required to have prepared plans for that particular conversion back to what it was.
Yeah, I think it was just the opportunity. Like I think the door literally says that room that is cry room. So that was seen as, I guess, an option to explore. And the city did things relatively change to that room, given the size, back to the word interpretation.
All right. Thank you.
Any further questions? Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this is one you can answer, but the little foyer in front of the crying room is being demolished, so there will be a change to that immediate area in front of the crying room. Was that foyer original to the crying room? Do you know?
I can answer that. It isn't the original plans, but has basically just because there's an airlock that's going to the women's toilet for a number of years, it's actually been used as a small kitchenette, and the crying room was actually used as an office. That's where the staff used to just make their tea.
So just to be clear, there will be some removal of original fabric relating to the crying room.
No, the crying room is a separate entity, and where the removal of original fabric going through there has been discussed with the Heritage Council, and they're very happy that that be removed to access the enhanced toilet facilities within 484 Hay Street.
But it's foyer to the crying room that's being removed, and that was original.
The connection, that separate room is original, but it's not integral to the use and function of the crying room.
So just clarifying that where this is thinking perhaps was there are works in that immediate area to the crying room.
Certainly, when it was raised on the inspection tour, we thought it was a good suggestion and something that should be considered. I've subsequently discussed it with the board, and everyone believes that it has merit. We just were surprised when it became a condition for this, because there had been no discussions with Westbridge about that, and it was something that we saw the foundation may take on in relation to the council in our program of future works.
Thank you. Any further questions? Yes.
Yes, I'd like to go back to the dilapidation reports. City officers. Have you had time to give informed consideration to the engineer's report that the auger using the auger system will not cause any problems have you had time to actually, study the engineering?
Yeah, thank you, and through the member. So we got this regulation 13, I think, 2 days ago. Our buildings about 50 degrees on leave. 2 days would be sufficient to look at that in any event. So no, we haven't considered the additional information in great detail.
With the dilapidation reports, they do fall now, I think, part of the issues that are substantially imposed for new developments. How much difficulty has it caused with sort of, what has been the response, from generally about the cost or the position of having to do it?
The cost hasn't really been raised as a major issue, particularly even for the larger scale ones. The ones that they had to do 100-metre radius, which was a much larger number of properties had to be surveyed than what's been required by our conditions. I'm not sure what the costs are these days. It's about 5 years ago. Maybe the costs have gone up. I'm not sure. Wouldn't expect that in particular. I understand logistically it can be quite hard to try and arrange that from developers to landowners. So I understand that. So yeah.
I have questions. You spoke earlier about related to application. You spoke earlier about the methodology that you're going to actually using, referring to 100 rates based on type of excavation undertaken, and you referred to 2 and 3 lower below ground length excavation as being considerations, the extent of the excavations, consideration to the type of obligations regarding the dilapidation reports. What we've heard today, and we have produced some information here, is a limited level of excavation. Have you got, or are you able to make a point in the context of, we're talking about different sites here at the moment, and as I understand through the information provided today, the commentary about the extent of dilapidation report has been tied to the extent of excavation and the methodology of the work for excavation. Do you have any information that leaves similarities or otherwise between the method and the requests being made through the building services relative to this particular site and its requests? Are they similar in terms of excavation, quantity, scale, those sorts of things?
Yeah, thank you, and review design member. So, historically, like I said, we would typically, if it was the one Subiaco, we imposed a requirement for 100-metre radius, and that was a similar requirement imposed on another development, which was 2 level space. So this particular one, that was before our building started, so we're going to building space now. So the properties that have been selected this time, the conditions that we've drafted for these dilapidation reports, are basically adjoining adjacent buildings, including the Subiaco Hotel. So the Subiaco Hotel, as Councillor mentioned as well, is on the State Heritage Register. So I think if that was of the mind to change or support the modifications to the condition, I would strongly encourage the Subiaco Hotel to be left on there, to be kept on as a condition required for the application report. But yeah, we haven't reviewed this information in detail. That's been submitted to Regulation 13, so it's hasn't been available, and we've only had 2 days to review it. We probably need the next week or so to actually look at that information and say, yeah, we agree with that, given the nature of the requirement proposed.
I have a question to the applicants, follow up on some of the comments earlier. Mainly plans on board, specifically in relation to the earlier questions about currently private. I'm looking at a set of plans, which is electronic page 40. It's the demolition layout, demolition plan, A102. And what I'm reading here, and what I've heard from people today, including Warren, is that you are demolishing an opening section of the original fabric on the external building in order to create a connection to the proposed new toilets. And what I'm seeing here is the demolition of the existing bathroom and kitchen. Am I clear am I correct or not, in understanding that the existing toilets are not part of the original fabric? Is that, when we talk about the original fabric, are we referring to the external wall in which you are creating an opening to the new toilets? I don't know whether that's how I'm reading this information.
The original toilets actually in 1938 had 3 stalls, if I can use that, in the female toilets, and they were 4 immediately above that, which are still there on the first floor. So for an auditorium of 1,086 seats, it was seen then to be sufficient to have 7 female toilets. As we've indicated, that is woefully inadequate, particularly now that we have 74% of patrons on an average are female, and any performance at the Regal is the first thing you see is a line of women's in the foyer waiting to utilise those. Over the years, we've tried to address that as much as we can within the heritage fabric. So those 3 original toilets in the ground floor have been augmented, and an additional 2 have been placed in there. So there are currently 5 toilets on the ground floor. The intention is to demolish those to gain access to 484 Hay Street, and we will then build 9 new toilets, 4 additional toilets, plus a UAT, which can also be used by female patrons. So that would end up with a substantial increase of 5 toilets ready for the any performance at the theatre.
Yes, yes. So are you saying those original, that the layout there is not part of original fabric? Originally there were 3 in there, and over the years, certainly before my time as on the board, those were refurbished and augmented, and the Heritage Council has deemed them not to be historically significant because they've been refurbished a number of times. Yeah. Sorry, thank you. That was what I was trying to clarify my interpretation of what I'm talking about. Yeah. Thank you. Those are my questions to clarify further. Any other questions from panel members? Yes.
I'd like to follow up on that one if I can. It's about these toilets are going to be used, I think, by both the bar and the theatre. Who's going to be responsible for the maintenance of them?
The arrangements that we have within the theatre is that once the new toilets are, the building is complete, the new toilets are there, they will be part of the whole theatre arrangement, and the bar is an integral part of the theatre, just as at the moment we have temporary bar facilities within the theatre that are utilising those toilets, and that's all been approved by the liquor licensing authorities.
So who will the bar be responsible, or because as of yet there's no agreement on bar.
I think you said that you will be leasing, the theatre trust will be leasing that
clarify. So the new toilets, the UAT, the central, they all go into the theatre. So in national related stuff, the bar is a separate tenancy at the moment, but there is works going on with our client next door to James Regal about potential to that part. So it's separate, it's not captured, the toilets and everything else.
And essentially the same question goes to the maintenance of the etc. Correct. That then all comes to the legal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any further questions at this juncture? There are no further questions. Thank you. We will now move back to the agenda. We have a recommendation at the beginning of the agenda, and we'll have an after term which deals with a number of conditions associated with the recommendation. As per the provisions, we will move forward, go to the recommendation and call for a mover of the recommendation as written in the agenda. Is there a mover of the recommendation? It is moved. Is there a seconder for the recommendation as written in the agenda? It is seconded. Would the mover like to speak to the item? Did you get the mover and second?
Yes, I will. I am a little bit concerned about the possibility of making amendments, but look, I will just a substantive issue, which is the recommendation of the RAR. I think it's important to note that this is a really important site in Subiaco. It's in the heart of our heritage precinct. It's immediately adjacent to the iconic Regal Theatre, which is nationally recognised as a heritage building. Across the road on the other side of the intersection is the iconic Subiaco Hotel, also nationally recognised. So this is heritage heartland as far as Subiaco is concerned. Heritage is very important to the city. And commercially, this is also an important site on Hay Street, just next to Rocket Road. It's our commercial hub. So getting this right is critical for our commercial and heritage precinct. Therefore, I think it's notable that this proposal has received wide support so far. In fact, as we heard this morning, the Regal Board supports it, the Heritage Council has given it the nod. The Subiaco planning staff have recommended it, and the Subiaco City Council has given it unanimous endorsement. So, what's led to such support for a sensitive site? Well, the applicants and the Regal Board have negotiated what appears to be mutually beneficial agreements. The Regal is arranged from a lift to provide access to the second level of the theatre, so there's access, better outcomes for fire safety egress, more parking installed, and probably one of the highlights, more than doubling the number of female toilets. And potentially a new front bar for the theatre, street front bar, although this still has to be resolved. But look, this is a commercial proposition. The applicant also has upsides as far as access is concerned. More importantly, the applicant is seeking 9 stories part of the site. The zoning allows for 6 stories with up to 8 for design excellence, which this proposal has achieved, according to the city's design review panel. The applicants are seeking an extra story, but they have pushed the building mass further down Hay Street away from the river, trying to reduce the impact on the theatre. And at street level, trying to make it a comfortable transition between buildings. The extra height they are seeking does not change the plot ratio, or the number of apartments they're seeking, that remains the same. But in my view, this is a better design outcome than having a 6-story building directly above the Regal with all setbacks. In my view, that would have been quite a poor outcome, although it would have met tables. So in essence, I think this is a better outcome as far as the legal and street space is concerned. It's a compromise that is commercially pragmatic, and I think it's a good design compromise. One that achieves the developer's goals while assisting Regal to sort out access and facility issues, most significantly for the toilets for years have been paying its existence. The applicants have also said they'll take into account other heritage issues with the site, and that I hope they will honour. For me, this is good in that it's development of hand in hand with heritage and coming up with solutions that are both viable and bring back community benefits. So I'm happy to support the policy recommendation.
Thank you. The second would like to speak to Martha.
Yes, thank you, Presiding Member. It's encouraging to see a development that is sought to work with the planning framework rather than against it. By working with the city and its design review panel, the applicant has achieved design excellence, which includes setting back the development to the east, away from the Regal Theatre. So this important heritage place is not overwhelmed, and also setting back along the south elevation from Hay Street, thereby reducing the overall appearance of bulk and scale of this mixed-use development. One of the consequences of that is a proposed increase in the number of stories and therefore the height of the development. But as noted in the RAR report, not the overall volume of development. In fact, the proposal has a smaller volume than what's possible under the planning framework. While the height increase might seem significant, the RAR notes that the height of this development is comparable to the adjoining commercial development on the west side of Alvin Street. So in that sense, it's in keeping with the existing urban context. A key feature of the planning framework is the exercise of discretion under certain parameters, and an important consideration when looking at discretion are the benefits. In this development, the most significant are the community benefits in relation to the Regal Theatre. This building is on the State Register of Heritage Places, so it's one of those places that tell an important story about Western Australia and its people. Heritage buildings sometimes face challenges in terms of meeting contemporary standards and expectations. Universal access to the upper floor and the amount of quality toilets, particularly those for women, have been a somewhat intractable problem for the Regal Theatre and could have compromised its long-term viability. It is commendable that the applicant in this case has worked constructively with the Regal Theatre to develop creative solutions to address some of the challenges faced by the theatre, which will greatly assist in seeing the theatre continue to be a valued part of the state's cultural heritage for many years to come. To address local concerns about the demolition of the current building on site, for instance, sheet metal, there are provisions for interpretation and an archival record, which are appropriate responses. And that will ensure that the story about Subiaco's industrial past are not both lost as the city grows into the
Thank you. Are there any other speakers on the motion?
Yes, I would like to say that it's a well-designed contemporary building, the new one, and the adaptation of the existing moving theatre and integration is well designed, and RAR and the Design Review Panel and Heritage Council board support the form of development. The development achieves compliance with the majority of the plan framework, and where discretion is sought, it has been justified in supporting by the authorities and the council. Minor demolition to part of the region theatre is insignificant in terms of benefits that facilitates integration of new development and upgrades the number of facilities and amenities for the patrons. The proposed development is in a highly urbanised setting, with nearby new buildings ranging from 4 to 23 stories. Regard to our 13 provisions, I am swayed by the argument of the opponents that the triangle is not part of this application, and would be no reasonable condition in planning terms that would support the retention of that. So in regard to the condition on the dilapidation surveys, to the extent shown in the council's recommendation, is onerous, and I think that it's unfortunate that the council would have from a building surveyor or someone quite weeks discussion in terms of the council the ability to respect the building surveyor, and condition may be able to modify it, but I think the extent shown is far beyond proposed development, and the type of piling that's suggested and familiar with the type of piling on a number of buildings that I have involvement with, and it's basically another local government's joint properties that have been required to be surveyed for dilapidation. I think that's southern side of Hay Street require dilapidation surveys for all those floors. So supporting the application, but Commissioner April well, I would be moving the amendment to Condition 18, and that is that
Amendment 1 is that condition 8 to 10 has been moved, is deleted. That condition also relates to the vice note of 65.
well, I think that the applicants are happy for the vice note to go in, whether the vice note is the same as which currently exists, I'm not sure. And note of that. It's 14, so.
It's been moved.
condition believe that then there's, doesn't have, that the plans don't show conversion of the original into a modern interpretation.
So then we say, I suggested that.
Delete condition.
Okay. So for a minute over, amendment 1 is delete condition 18 and delete the corresponding advice note, which is this time.
It could be that the advice that is changed to encourage the theatre trust or the applicants to investigate the conversion of the original prior into a modern interpretation, but it's something the theatre trust is doing. But if it's not part of this application, then I'm saying.
Okay, that is amendment 1. Is there a seconder for amendment 1? It is seconded. Would the seconder like to speak to amendment 1? Are there any other speakers on amendment 1? I will speak to.
We have amendment 1 put out, so
Yes, amendment 1 is the deletion of condition 18 and the corresponding advice note XIV, so 14. No replacement, just deletion of both of those aspects for the comments that have been provided, unreasonableness of condition and an overstep in relation to the development. Any other, would you like to speak to that?
Look, I can see the reason behind the condition behind the advice note should remain, so that was about the same.
Thank you. I'll speak to the amendment. I support the amendment in both components, both the condition and the advice note. I don't see any relevance to retain an advice note just to a condition, and I equally take note that from both the applicant and from the Regal Theatre that this is not for part of the discussions and part of the application for us. And so, as far as I'm concerned, in future discussions, whilst fantastic, not part of my consideration of those proposals. So I'm comfortable that for the reasons that have been provided. Those are my comments. The other speakers, yes, we're very on to point, yes.
I'll speak against the amendment. I do take the point that there aren't changes being made per se to the crime room, but there are changes being made in the immediate vicinity. Openings and access to that room are changing, and I don't think it was an entirely unreasonable condition of the council. However, I would have been happy to remove the condition, but the advice note.
If there are no other speakers, we move back to the mover for right or right and close off vote on the amendment. We're now going to the vote, members, on amendment 1. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 3-2 for the amendment taken. We are back to yourself. Member, if you'd like to speak.
On amendment 32, condition 32.
Yes,
Well, I'd be saying that that's the dilapidation survey, the condition of the approval, but it extends to the adjoining Regal Theatre and the property adjoining the right of way of the first property, right of way to move.
8. So your amendment is, as I understand, amendment 2 is to modify condition 32, and that is that so your modification is for dilapidation reports to be undertaken on lots, essentially what the applicants requested plus Alvin Street, is that what they're saying?
Yes.
Which is over the other side of the right of way. I'm just doing it. That is number 8 Alvin Street, and the lot's number here. It's number 8. Okay, that is what's been removed. It's a modification of condition 32. It includes the 3 sites as provided or referred to in the applicant's alternate request for modification, plus 8 Alvin Street. Does that make it clear for the minute takers? Is there a seconder for amendment 2?
So, 3, which sites?
Okay. Yes.
There's number 8, number 3, but only that which is butts. Because I think 3 on that plan we've got shows a number of properties, but there's only one. I don't know whether that's all of that. Number 3 on our plan is number 8 Alvin Street.
According to information that's come out of Landgate, that's what I looked at. My understanding, and clarity from either officer or applicant, my understanding is that number 8 is this whole lot.
That whole lot.
Yep, that's what coming out of Landgate.
Yeah, it's lot 501.
Pardon?
Lot 501, number 8.
Yes, quite a large site. It's the whole site.
And there's a number of buildings on it.
So your current motion will refer to the whole complex because it is one site.
Well, I was saying the building that it butts, the building on lot 500 that it butts to.
Okay. So the motion is for modification of condition 32 to include those numbers plus 8 Alvin, limited to the section of the building portion that adjoins the right of way.
There's one contiguous building over the whole site and there's over the whole lot.
I agree. Also, I think we should have on this plan 8, 7. This is not about. This is about the construction of buildings. So it's assuming that's 7. I suspect it's my client I'd be advising that survey so they can those buildings were in case there's damage.
Well,
So we've got at the moment, which just to clarify, at the moment we've got essentially the we've got theatre and lot 61 as we come down lot 0. We've got the property at the rear of say on Alvin Street, number 8, and which numbers are you referring to?
No, I'm 7.
Okay, so number 7 on that plan is 67 Rockley Road. And number 8 on that plan is
67 or 61? Because on this list.
no, it's not. So this is out of the map. Sorry, just to clarify, everybody, we've got the map that we're going to is the map that's contained in the agenda. It's in the RA and then it appears on page about 300 and something. It looks like this. 300 and something. It's actually got, it's called subject site red, yellow redevelopment, green Regal Theatre. I have to find it in the plan because these refer to specific details and site details as opposed to these reference numbers. This is probably- Oh, okay, so it's just a minute, I can get nothing. I'll give you the number, the correct number. No, it's 300 and something, it's 360, I think, something. I'll find it.
Is it 397?
Could be.
It's the location plan attachment.
Yep, attachment 15. Yep, that's okay. Thank you. So thank you. So you can see what we're referring to, what's being referred to is on the corner of Hay Street and Rockaby Road. You'll see on the left-hand side, it says 67, that's street number 67. And on the other side is street numbers 455, and it incorporates the Subiaco. That's what.
That commentary is because they are all, they're not huge buildings, but I think they're buildings that if there is if there is vibration or something that can be buildings. So I think that makes sense.
Well, as the mover, I'll change my motion. I'll completely change the motion to include the Subiaco Hotel.
And is that related to the includes one of the rear? Is that correct?
And it just
Okay, so for minutes paper, we are referring to the three sites referred to by the paper. Yeah. This request for change. Yeah. Plus 67 property. Plus 455. Pastry, and that 455 is a super hotel. And 8 Albion, which is limited to the building, the portion of building that joins the right of way. That's mover and seconder. Is that correct, mover and seconder?
Yeah.
Okay, seconder.
Well, the reason that I'm moving is that the proposed technique for item one doesn't have impacts involved. The type of filing and depth of filing and the lack of the watering will not
Would the seconder like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable analysis, and I think it actually and I also just involved.
Are there any other speakers on amendment to modification to condition 32?
Yes, look, I will. I can understand the reason for having that, but I'm not going to support it because this is the heritage part of the Subiaco. This is we don't know the condition of a lot of the footings that are buildings in this area. There hasn't been time for the city to properly assess what has been proposed by the applicants. There may be some knowledge by other members, what this system is, but really, there hasn't been time to properly address what's been suggested by the applicant. So, and to say that, you can really rely on the vibration. So, what was
Any other speakers on amendment 2? I will speak to amendment 2. I think there is some logically narrowing down the extent of dilapidation. I take comfort in the information that has been provided to the applicant specialist. I am not a structural engineer. I would have from information provided from the specialist in the space that provides a level of clarity for me. The officers have advised that they have insufficient time to provide any more substantive response into it, and the building surveyor has provided a level of analogy from other considerations. I take also that this proposal has different levels of extent excavation, which does create some interesting analysis against the two types of the other buildings, and equally the information is provided in relation to the methodology as well as the water table. I think those pieces of information provide some further clarity in this conversation. In terms of the recommendation or the amendment, I'm comfortable to narrow the extent of the dilapidation of forts as per that has been moved. I would acknowledge that this may be subject to further considerations, and that there's other more detailed explanation about the methodologies and opportunity for city officers or experts and cities decided to also be able to review. I would concur that there are obligations in other forms of legislation. Payment is one of the obligations that we have to do, and this does not remove any obligations that are in other pieces of legislation that they need to pass through before they can commence any development on the site. So at this juncture, I support the amendment that does narrow it down to some of the more substantial proximity to have a level of reservation about the distance between the applicant's excavation and the Subiaco Hotel. Do note that it's a significant building, but there is a reasonable distance between the nine. And in the absence of any more substantive information, I do have some questions about the inclusion of that, but I am comfortable with that before. Those are my comments in relation to amendment 2. There are no other speakers. I move back to the mover of amendment 2 for right of required closing debate. We are going to the vote on amendment 2, which is a modification to condition 32 and deals with limitation or limited sites in relation to this proposal. All those in favour? Against? It's carried 3-2 for the minute taker. I move back to yourself.
No.
Okay. No. Any further discussion on any further speakers on the? We're moving back to the substantive motion. Any further speakers on the motion on the table? I will speak to the motion, but before I speak to the motion, I am moving amendment 3. Amendment 3 is a series of changes. It relates to modification of condition 15, modification of condition 22, and deletion of condition 36, and deletion of condition 34. The rationale for those changes, are, and I will make just a general comment here that I am not making any changes to condition 12. The reasons for my modifications are essentially they are minor in nature and they're supported by officers with all of those elements, and including the deletion, and they're comfortable with the rationale to be provided in relation to the rain the grounds for these changes, and I've heard that information from the applicant. I do note the officer's comment that they had limited time frame in which to provide more substantive responses to some aspects. So for me, I am moving for reasons of the modification of condition 15, the deletion and the modification of condition 22. Those modifications are as per the wording that has been provided in the applicant's requested wording. So we need to take that. Condition 15, there's a request in the applicant's submission. That is the wording that is being changed. In the applicant's submission, there is wording in condition 22, the applicant's submission for modification. I am moving those as modification. There is a seconder, that is mine. Is there a seconder? It is seconded. I have no further comment. The seconder likes to speak.
No.
Is there any other speakers on amendment 3? If there are no speakers on amendment 3, I have no further comment myself. I'm going straight to the vote. All those in favour? It is carried unanimously. That is amendment 3. We move back to the substantive motion. Are there any other speakers on the substantive motion? If not, I will speak to the substantive motion. I won't repeat the words that have been given already. I think the proposal is an excellent development in the context of the site. Substantial considerations have been given to the siting of the building relative to the adjoining properties, to the legal theatre I'm referring to, and the discretion that's being sought, as already been indicated, is appropriate in the context of the site and in protection and separation between that and its neighbour. I would also commend the applicant and the team for working so closely with the legal theatre, and I would also commend the legal theatre, and I thank you for your information about the heritage of that building. It's provided a lot of clarity for me. And I think it's a very, very good outcome in relation to the longevity of the theatre, as well as an excellent example of development on that corner, integrating the street and providing much needed housing and appropriate performance. So those are my comments on the proposal. I move back to the mover, which is now you move the substantive, provided not requiring close debate.
I'd just like to say that on many occasions on this panel there's been we've been faced with a disconnect between what the applicant wants and what the community responses are. So I think it's good this time that there seems to be overall support from all for this, and I would like to see more, and but that is agreement.
Thank you. Right of reply has been had. We are now going to the vote, inclusive of amendments that have been carried. All those in favour? Is carried unanimously for the next paper. We move back to the agenda. There are no Form 2 applications as listed. There are no Section 31 reconsiderations. The SAT appeals, there is no discussion on those. They are listed. Is there any general business at this juncture for panel members? There is no general business. I am closing the meeting accordingly at 12:44 p.m. Thank you. I demonstrate.